The JLR interview series.
Marvellous Mark King with us, one of the greats of British bass playing and singing, and was one of the key members of Level 42. So first of all, how are you today, Mark?
I'm very well, thanks, Laurie. I'm actually still a member of Level 42, so along with Mike Lindup, who was one of the original members, so we're still going strong, thanks.
Of course you are, absolutely. And I've seen you play recently at the Jazz Cafe a few years back, so playing as well as ever as well. So I've got some questions to you today because you've helped form a new group which I've read in the press has been termed as a supergroup. And it's called...
Yeah, more of a supper group, actually, Laurie.
Well, that's what they say. So it's called Gizmodrome, and it's yourself, Stuart Copeland, Andrew Bellew, and Victoria Cortina. Is that correct pronunciation?
Cosma. It's actually Adrian Bellew, and Adrian's pretty well known in the business as being a sort of a real free-thinking guitarist, a maverick who's played with the likes of Frank Zappa and David Bowie and Talking Heads and King Crimson, of course. And now it's lovely to be in a band with him because he, as a musician, an instrumentalist, is very, very inspiring to watch work. The whole project is really Stuart Copeland's baby, I suppose you could call it, and it's like a revisiting of an alter ego he had called Clark Kent.
Yes.
And I first did a project with him where he was this sort of Clark Kent persona back in 1985.
Oh, really?
One of the very first BBC Children in Need broadcasts, which was on the Wogan show, as it used to be then. It was a much smaller event, but Stuart asked me if I'd like to come and play with him on a song he had. And he said, do I know any other guys? And I said, well, you know, my mate Nick Kershaw can come in and play guitar, which he did. And we also had Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson, on tambourine, which was a sort of a rather bizarre thing. What was incredible was that Rowan was really a very, very good tambourine player. And it turns out that he's very into his prog rock. What surprised me, though, was that when we showed up to just have this run-through at the BBC, just before it went on air, is that Stuart was actually playing guitar, and that was a real sideswipe for me.
Right.
Because, of course, we know him as one of the great drummers. And we had Mark Brzezicki was playing with us on drums, Mark, drummer with Big Country, of course. But that was my first introduction to what would later become Gizmodrome.
Oh, okay. So I mean, was it that Stuart contacted you for this project?
Yeah. I got a call from him last July, 2016, about the 1st of July, actually. And 7 days later, I was in Milan, sitting in a studio with him and Adrian and Vittorio Cosma. Vittorio, by the way, just as a bit of background, is one of the leading lights of Italian prog, and he was keyboard player with a very famous and influential band from the 70s called PFM, and they're worth a Google because those guys were nuts. And I remember my first introduction to hearing those guys was on John Peel's show, late night listening. So I got a call from Stuart. We cracked on down there, and it was great because we had 10 days in this studio, very old school, just like it used to be. You know, Stuart sitting on drums, I'm sat 5 meters away, you know, with my bass around my neck, and Adrian's another 5, and we just sort of started knocking these ideas around. Fortunately, Stuart and Vittorio had quite a few sort of half-made songs in the oven, which is always great because it gives you kind of a direction to go in. But then as we sort of played, there was definitely a sound and a sort of a unique style, I think, that was coming with this band. And that's really, really exciting because, you know, as a musician, you'll play anything. Anybody can play anything because you hear it and it's sort of monkey see, monkey do. What defines in sort of individual and outstanding musicians, I think, is when suddenly it sounds just like them and you hear this noise that comes out. And it's quite unique, you know.
Okay. So I was wondering if it was sort of Stuart Copeland, who had like a mainstay on it, because the tracks I've seen so far on YouTube, he's taken the lead vocals. So I take it that, are you lead vocalist on any of the tracks?
No, not at all. This is it's very, you know, until you hear the music, it's hard to describe what it is. And I know that there are sort of quite a few other Level 42 fans who don't sort of get the fact that this isn't Level 42. So this isn't me being, you know, the front man of my own band. This is like this is Stuart Copeland's idea,
right?
And the way that he delivers the songs, which he does so well, and in a way that I couldn't do it. And Adrian, we both agree, because Adrian's a wonderful vocalist too.
Oh, okay.
But we just say that, you know, it's best if we just sort of jump in on choruses and things, and let Stuart sort of, you know, vent his spleen as he does, but and deliver it the way he does, which is kind of Zappa-esque, come Tom Waits, you know, come Bill Callahan from Smog,
That is very true. But I really like how you come in on the choruses. You know, it's got your trademark.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's good to have a melodic refrain. You know, when we were recording the stuff, Stuart would say to me, you know, he'd do this thing of like, "There's a man on the mountain," and he'd sort of deliver these lines, and he'd say, "Mark, could you just go in and track what I've done?" And it's very hard, because you say, "We're not actually singing anything." You're sort of narrating, come humming. I don't know. It's just the way, you know, come like just bellowing this stuff out. And he says, "Well, just do what you can." And then, you know, we sort of run with it and stuff. It was a lot of fun. I must say, there was an awful lot of giggling going on.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you know, like you just said that you obviously worked with Stuart before, back in 1985. But is this the first time you've really played with him as a drummer? Because you said he was actually playing guitar that evening.
Yeah, in '85 he was doing that. And you know, when we take Gizmodrome out live, which we're hoping to next year, so fingers crossed that all comes off.
Yeah.
You know, Stuart will be bouncing really between playing drums and picking the guitar up and getting out front. In which case, we've got Pete Ray Biggin, who is the drummer, the sort of current drummer with Level 42, keeping tabs on drums too, which is, for me, is fantastic, because Pete and I play together. You know, it's very hand in glove with us, and Stuart and Adrian are both sort of blown away with Pete's gift on the drums too. So it's just going to be live. It's going to be one hell of a band, that's for sure. Yeah,
sure. But you know, just talking about Stuart, because obviously he's the drummer on this project. I mean, you're quite a propulsive bass player, I would say. You know, and Stuart is quite a propulsive drummer. So, I mean, how does it feel to work with someone who has that, you know, urgency, being on top of the beat often? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's wonderful for me, because you know, as part of the rhythm section, as it were, you know, the bass and drums within a band. You know, I've been really, really blessed with only playing with great drummers, it would seem. You know, we had Phil Gould in the band, and then Gary Husband came into the band when Phil left, and you know, Gary's phenomenal. And then Gavin Harrison came in for a short while, then Gary Husband returned, and now, when Gary couldn't do a couple of things, we were lucky to have Billy Cobham decked.
Oh, really?
And we did some shows with Bill Cobham on drums. And of course now we have Pete Ray Biggin on drums. So playing with Stuart is, for me, it's just an extension really of how lucky I've been as a bass player to play with so many great drummers. Because Stuart is very unique, you know, he has this this way of, I don't know, it's very hard to put your finger on it. He doesn't just keep the backbeat, that's for sure. You know, he's off and running, and there's you know, there's a real sort of lyrical way that he plays, because he uses toms where you wouldn't hear other people play toms, and then he suddenly loves to switch the beat upside down, sort of turn around on his head, which when you know it's coming, it's fine. When he does it, and you just, you know, out the blue, you think, whoa, go with it. But as a bass player playing along with that, you know, I need to make room for that sort of thing. And where this isn't a Level 42 thing, so you know, when I set off with my bass over my shoulder, I was fully expecting not to be dragging my thumb out, You know, but if that's required, that's what I'll do. But this, you know, I use a pick on a lot of this stuff, you know, as well as fingerstyle. And you know, in trying to find an actual sound that would work, I found that it was much better if I went retro. So I was sort of looking towards that very Fender sound from the 1960s and 70s, and that is what I ended up doing, was sort of playing that style, and I got my status bass to sound like it in the end. But I had to actually I was very lucky to borrow a 1967 Fender Jazz for the project initially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that sounds really interesting, because I mean, it gives you an opportunity understating it, I suppose, but because it gives you like the opportunity to explore different ways of playing, or maybe things you haven't done for a while, perhaps. The reason I said, because I've seen Marcus Miller a couple of times, and obviously he's one of the great, you know, slappers of the bass, but when he plays, you know, with just fingers or whatever, he just sounds amazing. So sometimes it's really nice to hear you guys, you know, go back to that, as you say, that kind of retro style.
Well, yeah, thank you. I mean, you know, the way, you know, whether you play with your finger style or with a plectrum, or you slap it or you hammer on, I mean, these are just different techniques used that have their own characteristic, for sure, you know. I mean, when you hear, you mentioned Marcus Miller, of course, who's, you know, a force of nature, really. You know, Larry Graham is incredible when you sort of hear Larry Graham play, Victor Wooten, and, you know, right now you hear Thundercat playing. I was blown away seeing him at the Six Music Festival, February up in Glasgow this year, and I was so pleased to see this, because there's this constant turnaround of guys sort of picking up the baton and moving on with it, and that's exactly how it should be. You know, it's almost like Olympian, because every Olympics world records are broken. You know, somebody runs faster, jumps higher, does this, and that seems to be part of human endeavour and human nature, is that you want to sort of move things on, and that's what you're always looking for, is something different, something fresh. You know, so. Just to bring it right down to earth again, that means using a plectrum and not hitting it with your thumb, then that's cool by me.
Yeah, excellent. And talking about Gary Husband, I mean, it's really interesting, because like some years ago, you played at the Jazz Cafe, and I saw Billy Cobham exactly a week before, and I saw you and your band. And a week before, Gary Husband was playing keyboards on Billy's band, and then exactly a week later he was playing drums for you. I mean, that's incredible, really.
Well, it is incredible, and of course speaks volumes about what an immense musician, what a giant the guy is, you know, of not just British music, but globally, because Gary is one of the go-to players now when, you know, if you just want to really, really raise your game, you know, and I know that all the guys that I grew up listening to that were my heroes, i.e. John McLaughlin, Bill Cobham, Chick Corea, you know, where the list just goes on and on and on. All of these guys go to Gary now and look to Gary to play with them, you know. So Gary not only plays keyboards in Fourth Dimension, which is John McLaughlin's latest incarnation of an amazing band, by the way. You know, that he will play keyboards with Billy Cobham, and then, of course, you know, he played drums with us. But I did a week at Ronnie Scott's some years ago, 2012, I think it was, and I had Gary playing keyboards. I had Pete Biggin on drums, Gary on keyboards, Mike Lindop on keyboards, and you know, my other buddies doing it. And there's nothing that Gary can't do. You know, that you know, he plays. I don't think a lot of people know that he's a fantastic trumpet player too.
All right.
Just real multi-instrumentalist, yeah. There's nothing he can't do. Music is what Gary's great at.
Okay, well, that is, incredible, isn't it, as you said. And, you know, just turning to yourself quickly, I'm intrigued on a couple of things, because I read on a biography that you actually started off as a drummer and then switched to bass. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true enough. You know, I really wanted to play drums, and it was my first love, you know, as a wannabe musician, and you know, there have been a few sort of moments through my life. My first love was Cream, you know, and Ginger Baker, watching Ginger Baker. And then I discovered Buddy Rich and the Buddy Rich Big Band. That was so inspiring. And then Jimi Hendrix, and when I sort of heard Jimi Hendrix, and I saw Mitch Mitchell, and then Buddy Miles playing in a band of gypsies, that sort of turned my head around again. And that was followed pretty shortly after that by discovering the Mahavishnu Orchestra and seeing Billy Cobham, and then working my way back through the lineage, because this is so great about sort of how the family tree of music works.
Yeah.
You know, having discovered McLaughlin and finding out McLaughlin's work with Miles Davis, and then discovering Tony Williams and Lenny White also worked with them, and you know that this whole sort of family tree of amazing drummers, and these were the guys that were really, really inspiring me. But of course, what you know, as a musician, I'm not just listening to the drums. You're being immersed in some of the greatest musicians there are. So you hear incredible guitar playing, you hear unbelievable keyboards, you know, pianos, and then you hear fantastic bass players too, and because they're all part of these amazing bands that they're in. And what that does is it completely takes your blinkers off, and then you find yourself, actually, I'm not just a drummer, am I? I'm a musician, and there are so many different things I want to do to make music. Where you have the ability these days to be able to go into the studio and write songs and create music from nothing into a computer, then it really, really pays off to know your way around a keyboard, you know, and know your way around a guitar, because you can start writing all of this stuff and getting it down.
Okay, so what made you switch to bass? The reason I asked, because I remember on Jacko's story that he switched to bass because he broke his wrist playing football or something like that, because he started off as a drummer as well.
Yeah, he's a fantastic drummer too. I mean, you only got to listen to Teen Town and know how sort of cool that is. Well, yeah, I think it was needs must really with me that I was living in London. I'd gone to join a band, trying to join a band when I was 21 years old in Austria. And I lost my drums. I lost all my records, and all my clothes actually come to that. They all just sort of went flying out the window. And I ended up back in London with nothing really. And then this is when I sort of tied up with my old buddies from the Isle of Wight, Boone Gould and his brother Phil, and I met Mike Linder. And we got together to sort of jam at the Guildhall School of Music on a Monday night. This would have been in late '79. And because I didn't have the drums, Phil had the drums, and Oak was also an amazing drummer too, you know, and that's how we became friends, as, you know, talking drums constantly. And so Phil, obviously it was his kit, so he was playing drums, and I just sort of shuffled between bass guitar and a bit of guitar, and you know, the house that I was crashing in North London, the guy there had a mini Moog and a 8-track recorder, so I was sort of messing around on that in the evenings too, which is where one of the songs that became famous for us, or popular for us later on, was a song called Hot Water, and that really came about back in 1979 in this bedsit up in Walthamstow, just messing around on a mini Moog. So, you know, it kind of enforces what I was saying about you shouldn't really wall yourself into any one instrument. There's always going to be an instrument that you shine on, of course, and for me it turned out to be bass, but you know, I would have loved to have done it on drums too, or guitar, come to that.
So it's like a calling almost, isn't it? It's destined.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether it's a calling, you know, and I don't want to sort of diss all the legions of bass players that are out there, because I love playing bass, you know, and that for me it's just a fundamental in a band, you know, and very often when the drummers sort of are laying stuff down, it's the bass that makes you dance, you know. That's the thing, and everybody likes to dance. So it's a nice thing, Laurie, you know, to play bass is cool, and it's easier too. You've only got 4 strings.
Well, you see, this is the other thing that amazes me, because there's so many great bass players who are the lead singers. You know, yourself, Peter Cetera, Larry Graham, Jack Bruce, Tina Weymouth, it's Glenn Hughes. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it doesn't sound that easy to me, but.
Well, yeah, it is funny that you say about the singing thing too. You know that once again that all came about really just through needs must in the band. Is that Andy Soika, who was our first producer, came along and heard us sort of rehearsing one day, and he wasn't overly blown away, but he said, "There's one thing I like you doing." He said, "If you can get somebody to sing on it and come up with a melody I'll record it. And so we met with him a week later, and in that week's time, Boone and I, because we were staying at the same place in Walthamstow, had come up with a top line and some lyrics for it. And it was me, sort of Foggle Freddy, that was, singing, "Oh, summer," doing that whole thing, which became our very first single, "Love Meeting Love." And so it was fate, really, that sort of forced me down. It never occurred to me to sing, though I'm glad I took it up, because, of course, it's the natural instrument that everybody has, or, everybody hums, or, to themselves sometimes. It doesn't matter if it's in tune or not, you're humming,
Yeah, and then Love 42 was a nice counterpoint between your voice and Mike Lindop's high pitched chorus vocals.
Mike has a real voice from heaven. He's and he can sing all kinds of things. He just sort of ended up singing more falsetto with us, because we kind of borrowed in a lot of ways from that Earth, Wind and Fire school of singing. Where you have Maurice White singing. Yeah, that's right. You have Maurice giving it the sort of the tenor stuff, and then Phil Bailey would suddenly get up and you go, wow, amazing.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, well, I think just to wrap up. So you guys hoping to get something going next year in the tour? So for us to look forward to.
The Gizmodrome thing, or Level 42?
Gizmodrome.
Yeah. Gizmodrome. We're looking to sort of go out on the road at February, March time. So please keep your eyes peeled for that. If we're in a town near you or whatever. And then Level 42 are going to be hitting the road later in the year, 2018. So we'll have an album to run with that, and it's exciting times, Laurie. There's lots to do, and I'll be turning 59 this month.
Wow!
And it feels great. I feel 29.
Wow, that's great. I mean, music keeps people. Well.
Nice talking to you, Laurie.
Okay, take care. Thanks a lot for the time.
Thanks, man.
There's some strange stuff they're gonna show me. Stay ready to cut and run. Stay ready. Stick to attention. Stay ready to cut and run. Stay ready to fly away. Whole new planet on my screen. A whole new place, never been here before. Strange faces like I've never seen. So just in case, I'll stay close to the door. Strange city down below, 1,000 feet to zero. Stick to attention. Stay ready to cut and run. Stay ready to fly away. Stay ready to cut and run. Stay ready. Stick to attention. Stay ready.
The JLR interview series.